You're on the couch now.
I love it. Sitting down for the first session.
All
Oh,
right.
that's good. Man, so you started with Jung, eh?
Yeah, I
I'm
started with Jung, and I feel like I'll always be a Jungian at heart.
okay.
But how about yourself?
Oh, man, it's been a journey. I mean, it took me a while to get to like psychoanalysis. Like back in 2020, the same kind of bug hit me of wanting to figure it out and go inwards. And, I picked up some of the Jungian ideas. Are you familiar with attachment theory?
No, no, no. I don't think so, no.
No, it's outside of analysis. It's kind of like on the periphery. But I just got interested in psychology, but uh, I just really went for the classic stuff. I really like Klein these days. Um,
Yeah, I keep getting a lot of people that message me saying, "Do you know Klein? Do you know Klein?" So I think it's about time
uh,
for me to get familiar with
dude,
her work.
are you like not like? Have you heard anything just on like the outset? Like, I'm curious how you read psychoanalysis. Like, what do you know of her?
Like I don't know much about Melanie Klein. I know a little bit from other people. Like I think Lacan wrote about her, and he
Yeah,
kind of criticized about how she put everything, or maybe not Lacan. I think it was Deleuze and Guattari. anti-Oedipus.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
I'm familiar.
I think they criticized her, saying that like she kind of put everything down into the Oedipus complex when she was talking with the children about the train, and she's like, "Well, what does the train symbolize?" Or she kind of reinforced the Oedipus complex onto the child. So
Yeah,
but like again, I haven't read her for myself, and I want to
that's her
read
big thing.
her thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it's basically taking Freud and bringing it back into like early infancy and like touching on, from what I understand of it, like touching on like the first sort of development of um, just organization and achievements of the mind. Um, but yeah, basically extending the Oedipus complex, not just from like, I guess around 3, 4 years, but like all the way back into those first kind of developments. It's interesting. I'm curious, is that kind of, I don't know, in terms of Deleuze and Guattari, like I haven't read any of that. I haven't really looked into the ideas. I just kind of know of it, um, just getting around. I'm curious, how do they think of the Oedipus complex? How do they,
So again, for me, I'm not no expert in, in
yeah,
Deleuze and Guattari. Even Lacan, I'm not even an expert. But from what I've
if you
read
just
from
generalize, yeah.
yeah, yeah, from what I've read, it was that they were trying to find a new conception of the psyche that isn't organized by the Oedipus complex.
So what do
Because
they do then?
so for them, because I think they linked it with capitalism and this hierarchical sense of like
Sounds about
society.
right. Yeah.
So it's like, you go into analysis, and what the analyst does to you is that they try to socialize you so that you're able to speak to your boss or whatever, and be comfortable with
Get by,
kind of
love and
get by
work.
it.
Yeah.
Exactly. So then for them, it's like, again, I could be completely wrong, but from what I understood, it was that they want like a different type of structure that isn't hierarchical and arborescent. They want something more, and they have a term for it. It's called the rhizome, and that's a term from botany, and it's
Yeah.
like the roots and stuff. So there's no singular root. It's kind of more sporadic.
Okay.
And then that was their kind of their just, but I hear a lot of criticism towards them too, and I don't know, but I'm still figuring it out. But that's
Yeah.
pretty much their approach with kind of the Oedipus complex and psychoanalysis, is that they want this rhizomatic a way of thinking and being, um and yeah.
And that's like wholly different than the Oedipus complex in there. Cause like the thing is it's such a like, and what I found interesting from what I've learned of Lacan, which is I haven't bothered reading any of his stuff. And I don't know when and if I will, because I imagine it's very I've just heard he's a hell of an obscurantist and
Yeah,
it's
he
just
is.
very, very challenging. Um, but just the way you even think of the Oedipus complex, like it's highly variable. And in Lacan, from what I know, he kind of like makes it more symbolic, rather where Freud's understanding is very literal, where it's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
you
yeah.
just and I think there's something to that, but I think the real interest and just the juice of psychoanalysis in general is that like just touching the, you know, real symbolic nature of the mind, and like how you can think of something like capitalism, and like a lot of, from what I know, like some people will think of Oedipus complex in terms of like overarching social structures and theories and
Yeah, yeah.
things. I wonder if that kind of, I don't know, recontextualization of the Oedipus complex is like compatible with what they're on about, kind of socializing the mind more in
Yeah,
a
yeah,
way.
yeah.
Yeah, like I could see something like that. How does Lacan because he still works with the Oedipus complex, right? Like how does he conceive of it?
The cool thing about Lacan is that like because like the main thing that made me kind of gravitate towards him was his use of linguistics and language. So like he uses psychoanalysis and he applies the rules of psychoanalysis to language and how we formulate language and how we come to being through language. So it's like he
Yeah.
Oedipalizes language, in some sense.
Huh.
And that's fucking super complex,
Yeah,
and I think
yeah.
that's what's challenging with reading him, because it's like and then he brings in mathematical equations and algebra and stuff,
Right,
so
right.
like signifier over signifier, and it's like, bro, what am I reading,
Oh my God. Yeah. Interesting. Hmm.
but but
That
but for him,
yeah.
like I would say, because like I remember, like Lacan, Guattari, I mean, Deleuze and Guattari, in some sense, I remember there was like a quote where they praised Jung. And
Okay.
the reason why was because similar to Jung, they tried to break away from the Oedipus complex. And when you look at Jung, he's Oedipalizing mythology, and that, for instance, it's not only the literal father and mother, but the symbolic father, the symbolic mother,
I
and
like
different.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's something interesting, and it's like, we're also like, our psyche has been constructed through other means other than just the mother and the father, but myths and symbols and art and literature and these different archetypes that shape us, um but whereas with Lacan, Freud, it's very, structured, like there's no way, there's no like this sense of beyond the Oedipus,
Beyond the Oedipus as in like the real mother, the
yeah,
real father
yeah, the
in
real
one's
mother, the real
development.
father. But Lacan's twist was with language, so that's like
Yeah.
a different approach, but nonetheless, it's still within that umbrella, you know.
Okay. When it comes to Jung, then, because he thinks in terms of like this archetypal figures, does he not still think similarly, our experience in those archetypes through our real experience and development with
Yes,
our mothers and
yes.
childs and the child's own like archetypal projection in a
Yes,
way?
yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
because like
okay.
Young started out as a Freudian, like he started out,
Right.
being the next
The air,
prospect,
yeah,
the
yeah.
heir, the heir of Freud.
Mhm.
And he has like some brilliant texts. There's a book that he wrote called The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious. And
Yeah,
then he has a whole section called like the mother complex, and he dives deep into the mother complex and how certain individuals, they might adopt Don Juanism and go from one girl to another, or they might have
sure.
some homosexual traits or whatever, stuff like that. But
Yeah.
like, so there is some psychoanalytic elements within Jung, but then what's interesting about him is how he branches off into mythology, and he branches off into, like, his alchemical studies and
Yeah, that
building
stuff's
his
cool.
own,
That's
yeah,
interesting. I
building his
wonder
own
how
like
that,
cosmology.
yeah, that's cool, where he kind of went for more of like, I don't know, the way I think of Jung and Freud, like I think of Freud, and I've been a lot more interested in him lately, Freud, just because I feel like it's more centered around like, the human and
Mm,
human psychology. Not to say Jung isn't great and profound in that,
mm,
but
mm.
Jung like really took the theory in like, yeah, a more cosmological, like metaphysical, spiritual direction, which I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
is it's especially these days is very, very like satisfying and
yeah, yeah.
considerable. But Freud is just like yeah, like biological sort of
Yeah,
bottom
yeah, yeah,
line
yeah,
drive
yeah.
theory, that sort of stuff. Yeah, what got you into Lacan from Jung and then into
Uh,
Freud? That's interesting.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I have a close buddy of mine, and we both read like literature together and stuff. And
Okay,
sometimes we
right.
kind
Yep.
we go off of discussion, and it's like looking back, it's as if we were kind of in analysis, like with each other,
Okay.
and bouncing off, transferences and stuff. And then
Yeah.
we came to the like we like stumbled upon the concept of language and stuff. And then I found Lacan's quote of the unconscious is structured like a language, and I was like, oh shit, there's
Yeah.
something
Okay.
there. Um, yeah,
That's curious how it works. Like I read it was really helpful actually. It's like a general sort of introduction to Freud, which was like more philosophical by Jonathan Weir. And he kind of talks about the unconscious and like how we can think about it. This idea of it as a language is interesting. I wonder what that means and then if it implies like a secondary mind of like I don't know, sentences and propositions in the way our like everyday language
yeah, yeah,
works. Like,
yeah,
how do you
yeah.
think of like, because in his description in that book of I don't know, I don't really remember exactly, but he seemed to imply that it was less of, and that might just be the Freudian understanding that it was less of something like you don't think of it as propositionally as our like more secondary process, like rational thought
Mm,
of
mm,
like I
mm,
want to
mm.
do this because this and that. Is it how does he conceive of it as like a language? And when he's working like in Lacanian analysis, when you're working with the unconscious, are you like thinking of it in terms of like actual words, or how do you understand that?
So like from what I've read, like language is the symbolic other.
Okay.
It's this thing that isn't ours, but we need it to come into being. Um,
Oh,
and that for instance, in a practical application in analysis, um, and it's something that I found very helpful with my own sessions is that, for instance, if you have a traumatic event, and whenever usually when we think back, we have this one conception, I was bullied when I was a kid, and this is the story, and he hit me like this or whatever. So it's
this
this
whole sort of yeah.
but then what analysis does is that it would say, like with Lacanian too, you would say, oh yeah, like when you said bully, does that like it sounds like, something else. So then it offers a different interpretation of the same traumatic event, and that kind of lets you reinterpret the the traumatic event in a different way so that you're not traumatized by it. So it offers a multiplicity of interpretations of events through the means of language.
Because the unconscious is using language to like organize the mind or organize conscious reality and our
Yeah,
own
yeah,
recollection
yeah,
things.
yeah.
Oh, it's neat, man. Yeah. So why'd you get into Jung and psychoanalysis
Well,
when
mhm.
there's a lot of other I don't know like why analysis? Yeah,
Like
was it because art and mythology in that
yeah,
way, and Jung just kind of
yeah,
yeah
yeah, and like I paint and I draw, and I was in art school, and I felt like it was like inevitable for me to stumble upon psychoanalysis. It's like I was already kind of like I was doing like automatic art, like art drawings and stuff like that. So it naturally led me to psychoanalysis, and then now I'm exploring like surrealism and
okay
stuff.
yeah
So
cool man.
it's all, like it's all under the same umbrella.
Yeah, yeah. But do you think that brought you into analysis in specific, other than other modalities of therapy in a way? Like, not even just because there's a lot of different therapy, and I'm just curious why analysis in particular,
I
like
felt
outside of other,
for
yeah.
sure, for sure. Like because I felt like because I've had other forms of therapy
Oh,
back
really?
in high
Okay.
school, but like it
Yeah,
was
man.
very very brief, but like it felt
Yeah.
like they were curating towards my ego or something, you know, like they were, it's like, here's
Sure.
some homework for you to do, you know, like
Oh,
here's
no.
and it just felt it felt off, like something about it was off, and I didn't know what
Yeah.
it was. And I felt like they were like they tried to be my friend or something, like there was any like boundaries, you know, like it felt, it just didn't feel like it was right. Whereas with analysis, it's like the complete opposite. It's like complete silence from the
Yeah.
analyst end, you know, and it's like you have to figure your own shit out. Um,
Yeah.
but like now, like right now, like I've been debating whether or not to like to find a Jungian, you know,
Okay.
uh, like I remember when I first wanted to find an analyst, like it was when I was getting into Lacan, and like when like in the books of Lacan, he's writing towards like analysts and stuff like that. So I'm like, you know what? Maybe if I just dive deep and I go through Lacanian analysis, maybe I'll shed some light on what I'm reading, you know? So that played
Okay.
another factor into why I chose Lacanian analysis. But
Yeah.
I really find a strong resonance with psychoanalysis as opposed to other means, like as
Yeah.
other forms of therapy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at the
Especially
end of
as
the
like
day,
an
it's like it's whatever helps the person, and
yeah.
like you know, like that's the key, and because like you know, it's very easy to go into theory and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, if cognitive behavior therapy helps you, it helps you, you know, like it's literally about you, and like there's no point to be a strong advocate for one form of therapy when at the end of the day it's literally for the betterment of the other person, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, and I've seen this sentiment online. I sometimes wonder to myself if to what degree my life has improved uh learning about this sort of stuff and
Right?
uncovering some of these realities. And I think for some degrees so sometimes it gets worse before it gets better.
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
find something I think you're very right about the practical aspect and reality of psychoanalysis. I also just find it a really interesting modality of understanding like the mind and of
yeah,
psychology itself because
yeah.
it seems like it's like I'm in school doing psychology classes and stuff,
Nice.
and like there's not a lot of time on
Yeah,
Freud. It's very
yeah,
quickly swept away, but
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah,
weird, right? Like people don't get it.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
I still don't get it, you know.
yeah,
The more I learn about it, the less I know. God, it's
yeah,
brutal.
yeah,
Um so it's really its own, but like it's I don't know, it seems really like its own sort of like feel. I don't know if I'd call it a science. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about all of
yeah.
that. I don't really know what
Freud would
science
disagree
is.
with you there, man.
Of
Freud would
course.
disagree.
How do you feel about it? Do you think it's like I don't know if I call it philosophy. I don't know if I call it science. Maybe it's its own thing. Maybe it's all of the above. Like people differ on that, you know?
I think it's a mix, you know, it's a mix of
Sure. Yeah.
philosophy, it's a mix of a science, you know, like it's always in development, it's always questioning itself, you know, whereas I don't know, so
Yeah.
it's, in some sense like it's a science in that way, you know, where it's always in a self-reflective and self-investigating you know, approach.
Yeah. I mean, when I've ever thought of psychology and my own interest in it over the years, it's always been most akin to what I think of as psychoanalysis these days. Like
Mm,
it's interesting just in the approach, like when you're like the way you would understand the mind in terms of you know psychology or cognition or these sorts of things. And then how analysis, it's almost like it's approaching the mind in a wholly other way. It's interesting.
yeah. Like I find that like because I remember I took like a psychology elective in my first year, and one of the multiple
Yeah.
choice questions was, you know, why was Freud wrong, you know?
Oh yeah.
And then like so right now it's like it's very like they're pushing the cognitive aspect, you know, the cognitive and biological aspect of the brain and the mind.
I think it's changing, man. I think
Yeah.
there's, especially with like trauma informed modalities and stuff, I think there's more interest in depth. I
Mm,
just think that, I don't know. I heard this one take from a podcast actually. I think they're called One Guy. I had someone recommend, but they had a Lacanian on, and he was talking about like criticizing therapism, which is kind of like, just modern sort of
Hmm.
contemporary conceptions of therapy and that. Because it's interesting because these days psychology, I feel like, has really entered like more everyday understanding to some degree. Like there's some level of consciousness in just like the way we regularly understand and relate to the world. Um, and he said something about how like the way psychoanalysis like conceives of trauma itself is different than a lot of other understandings. And I found that to be interesting. And I wonder what psychoanalysis can bring to the, I don't know, developments and comprehension and just state of psychology in the world at the moment, because it's felt like something of a shift to me and from where I started from and just also seeing the areas in between, because I think a lot of our understanding is like for me, what I really got out of reading, getting into Freud, is just how it's such a bottom line of where psychotherapy even grew out of, and where our
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
understanding of our own subjectivity and like more of an analytic, like real or scientific sense even started. Um, because it's a pretty deep question, I've found, like really considering psychoanalysis, because it's really a question of like, what goes through our minds, what goes through others' minds, how can we know what goes through others? Like it's very like it's intense. Um, I don't know. Do you see more? Do you think psychoanalysis has something to offer the world in a way
Right
that's
now,
that's considerable? Yeah. How do you conceive of it, just in the world and its value? Do
I
you think people
mean,
could benefit? Yeah.
again, like I think it depends on the
Sure.
person, but I do think it's more I don't know, like there's something about it. It's more intense, or um it's more revealing, and
Yeah.
it's like it really does make you go to the root of, like, these negative emotions and shame and guilt, and
Yeah.
regret, and all the way down to its sexual, relations with
Oh,
yourself.
for sure, man.
And then, so it's like, like, it's like you don't necessarily see that in other forms of therapy. It's like,
Especially the sexual component.
yeah,
Especially
exactly,
the
and
it's harder, right?
it's harder, and it's like, but it's like,
Oh, it's there.
it's
I
there,
think it's very
yeah,
real.
yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
I think
Oh
that
gosh.
that's a very important aspect too. It's like, like, what are the things that get you sexually aroused, and why is it,
Oh, sure.
why, and why are those
But
the
that whole
things that get you aroused?
dimension in domain, like the fact that there's something of a logic to that we can
Yeah,
understand, and
yeah.
also the fact that we can't, like, I feel like just I've heard Lacan described as almost like the subject is almost like, well, I don't know. I guess in some sense, people say that in Lacan, there's not really a self or like a core subject, or that there's like an
Mm-mm-mm-mm.
infinite regression to it, and that like affects the logic or just like way of even like conceiving of ourselves and how we understand
Mm-mm-mm.
um, our own selves. And I just feel like that sort of understanding of the mind, it just comes as like a bit of a shift in a way. But what I was are you familiar with guys like Zizek or
Oh, yeah,
Zupančič? I guess it's
yeah,
I
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
find that project of trying to bring this sort of theory
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
other conversations. I find that pretty interesting.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
definitely. And like what I'm interested in right now is, like I mentioned earlier, like surrealism, but also
okay,
like the Frankfurt School. Um
okay, yeah, I know it's popular.
so, like, like I picked up Eros and Civilization by, forget his name. Uh
Horkheimer, or
yeah, yeah, one
I
of
don't
them,
know, I don't know. Yeah, sure.
And so it's like, and you see psychoanalysis being applied in a different way, like to society
Yeah,
as a whole, with a
yeah,
Marxist twist to it. So it's very interesting in reading psychoanalysis that way, like outside the couch, like, yeah.
yeah. Just like,
Herbert Marcuse,
because
that's his name. It came up.
oh, was he a
Yeah.
Frank? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, yeah. I feel like once you go through analysis or sort to understand something of the theory, like I don't know, like it has, it has implications, or you could see applications of it in certain ways, or like it changes your understanding of yourself at
Yeah, yeah.
least. And it gives you new ways of thinking about things. If it's its own science in any sense as well, too, I could see it.
And in film too, like have you seen
Oh,
Zizek's
sure, that stuff's fascinating.
the Pervert's Guide to Cinema? His
No, I haven't really looked into
Oh,
his work, but
that's a must
yeah.
watch, man. That's a must
Is it good?
watch. No, it's
Yeah.
brilliant. It's amazing. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What does he just like analyze a film and give a
Yeah,
bunch of
any
like
any
sexual
any
jokes and
yeah,
innuendos and
yeah, that's
shit?
literally it. And that's what makes it amazing. And he puts himself in the scene, like he puts himself in like in this, like
Oh.
I don't know how they did it, it's a green screen or something, but like the lighting is right and he's in the room and he's there like sniffling and picking at his shirt and it's hilarious. I love it.
Clicking at his shirt. That's
Yeah.
great. Yeah, man. Do you know Cadell Last? Does that ring a bell?
No, no, no.
No. He's a guy on YouTube who has like calls it a philosophy portal, but you might be
Mm-mm.
interested. He's really interested in Lacan and psychoanalysis. He has this book, Sex, Masculinity, and God, which is
Oh,
not even
that's a heck of a title.
it's a big title, yeah. I don't know, you might be interested, but he's really working with that kind of like, man, I'm worried about saying too much about a bunch of stuff I don't understand and kind of
No,
just on the periphery of,
it's all
but
right.
yeah, you might really like Cadell's channel, because I find, well, it seems like really trying to use psychoanalysis, especially like Lacanian stuff, and like use it to almost make like a new metaphysic, or just like way. And he's really big on like the sexual dimension as well.
Amazing.
Yeah, pretty interesting. You might be interested. Um, have you looked into Zizek or Zupančič or any of those kinds of thinkers?
I tried to get into Zizek, but like he's a
Yeah.
big Hegelian, so I tried to read Hegel, and
Oh boy.
I'm still on page 7 of the phenomenology of the
Oh
spirit.
man.
Like,
Just
I'm
trying to
still
reread
yeah
it and figure it out, or
yeah, I'm on like paragraph 7 of the preface, and like it's like I can't
oh
I've
man.
been working on it for like a year, and I'm still nowhere, and
What, you got
but
like 500 more pages to go
yeah,
to?
exactly.
Yeah, I'm trying to get into Kant, and
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
told myself I wouldn't, but I'm like, okay, I'll just read the Prolegomena, like his shortened version. But oh no, it's brutal.
There's a very good book called it's by Terry Pinkard, and it's
Okay.
called the I think it's like a German philosophy, and there's
All
a
right.
podcast with Zizek and Pinkard on Hegel, so he's a very credible academic.
Yeah. Is he the guy who
I'll
works with
send you.
Heidegger too? Or is
I'm
that
not
a
sure.
different?
I'm not I th
Okay.
Probably I don't know.
Yeah, I just had a guy mention to me some Hegelian who like is really known for his convergence with him and Heidegger. Yeah, what are you reading now, man?
Right now I'm back on my Jungian
Okay.
psychology. Um, I think we have maybe like 10 minutes left because I have the cheap
Yeah,
version of Zoom. But
I should go soon too. I gotta make it
yeah,
class.
I don't want to take too much of your time.
No, likewise.
So we can catch up another time, or
Yeah,
you know
I'd like that. Yeah. Can
yeah.
I get a link to your Discord? I heard that there is a Discord.
Oh
That
yeah,
there'd be
yeah, yeah. I
connection.
still have to make one, but I'll definitely make one,
Oh, you
and I'll
haven't done
start.
it. Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
thought it was up, and I was gonna ask you.
Yeah, I'll make it soon though. I'll make it soon.
Yeah, cool.
All right, man.
Yeah, I should head over. All right. We'll be in
Cheers.
touch, man.
We'll be in touch,
Nice to
man.
chat. Thanks for your time.
Likewise.
Peace.
Likewise, man. Peace,
Bye.
man.